Hey Ranger Nation, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be going back to Putty Attack from the Mighty Morphing books. So yeah, I think it's a good time to jump in to chapter 3. But if you like this sort of content and you want to hear and see more, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on all notifications, and with that, let's jump to it. Chapter 3. Oh no! Kimberly shouted as 6 Putty patrollers crashed onto their picnic blanket. Kimberly and Billy saw at once that they were outnumbered. They needed help. "Jason, Trini, Zach!" Kimberly called into the communicator that she wore on her wrist. "We need you!" No one answered. "They must be still underwater," Billy said as he aimed a karate chop at an attacking Putty. 2 Putties rushed Kimberly. She backflipped out of reach and landed her combat boots on the chest of another Putty. Billy zipped in and round the other Putties. They dived at him, but he was too quick. When he whirled around, he saw them lined up in a row. "Just the way I want you," Billy shouted. He leaped up and kicked the first Putty in the chest. The Putty crashed into the one behind him, who tumbled onto the next one, and they all tumbled down like dominoes. Just as quickly as the Putties had appeared, they disappeared. Kimberly dusted off her jeans. "Good work, Billy. You were more phenomenal." Billy smiled, but he looked worried. "I wonder what the Putties were up to. We'd better contact Zordon." Billy pressed the button on his communicator on his wrist and spoke into it. "Zordon, come in. I sense Rita is up to something." "Your senses are correct," Zordon replied. "Come to the command center at once." Billy and Kimberly pressed the teleport buttons on their communicators. A second later, 2 balls of sparkling light, one pink and one blue, streaked away and materialized inside the secret command center. Alpha 5 whirled over to greet them. "Ay, ay, 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 ay!" the robot cried. His red lights blinked wildly. "We've got big trouble!" Billy and Kimberly turned to Zordon, whose image spoke from inside a column of a weaving green light. "My sensors have picked up a strange disturbance in the ocean," Zordon told them. Kimberly's eyes widened in alarm. "Oh no! Zach, Jason, and Trini are all diving down there." "We know," said Zordon, "and that is where Rita has sent her newest monster." Alpha pointed to the viewing globe in the center of the room, and Kimberly and Billy hurried over to it for a closer look. They couldn't believe what they saw. A scaly sea monster thundered up and down Angel Grove Beach. Sharp, brown fins ribbed its pink and seaweed green body. Its webbed feet left its ominous footprints in the sand. 3 evil-looking fangs jilted from its 2 mouths, but the most terrifying thing of all was the one mysterious fish eye in the center of its forehead. "Rita calls this monster the Goo Fish," Zordon explained. Billy turned pale with fright. He feared all fish, and now he was staring at the biggest, most deadliest fish he'd ever seen. The monster sprayed a gooey spray from one of its mouths. The poison goo melted the sand and made fish leap out of the water in terror. "It's destroying the ocean," Kimberly explained. "You cannot wait for the others," Zordon instructed. "The Goo Fish is extremely dangerous. It destroys anyone and anything it touches. You two must stop the Goo Fish before it's too late." Kimberly nodded. "It's morphing time!" She and Billy raised their power morphers to the sky, just as Zordon had taught them. They called upon the spirits of the ancient dinosaurs. "Pterodactyl!" cried Kimberly. "Triceratops!" cried Billy. Instantly, the 2 teenagers morphed into Power Rangers. Dressed in their sleek jumpsuits, the pink and blue Rangers disappeared in a flash of light and reappeared at the beach to battle the Goo Fish. Chapter 4. Kimberly and Billy scanned the deserted beach. Shading her eyes, the Pink Ranger gazed out to the sea. The blue water showed no sign of their friends, or the Goo Fish. "Zach, Jason, and Trini are still scuba diving," Kimberly said. "I have a feeling someone's going to pop up somewhere," Billy said. Then suddenly, from out of the calm water, rose the mysterious head of the Goo Fish. Billy jumped back. "This is most disturbing, Kimberly. It's a fish. I can't go near it." "Come on, Billy. You can handle it," said Kimberly. Billy whirled and saw the Putties landing on the sand behind him. "I can handle them," he shouted. He and Kimberly sprang into action as the Putty Patrol attacked. The Rangers used gymnastics and karate to defend themselves. They fought so hard that the mindless creatures retreated, but as they did, the Goo Fish launched up on the shore. Bit by scale bit, the giant fish moved in on Kimberly. "Hey, slime ball!" shouted the Pink Ranger as she tried a karate kick, then a backflip smash. The Goo Fish came on strong though. Too strong. Now it cornered Kimberly. "Billy!" she cried. "Give me a hand!" Billy tried to overcome his fear and raced to Kimberly's side. Up in her fortress on the moon, Rita screeched in anger. "How dare those power brats try to stop me! They can't win!" she shouted as she waved her wicked wand frantically in the air. "How can I stop them?" she shrieked. Then she whirled around and focused her scary dark eyes on Goldar. Goldar's snout wrinkled as he thought faster as he ever had before. It was a bad idea not to answer someone who could turn you into a toad, or a rock, or a tree. "I've got it," Goldar roared. "Cast a spell on Billy, so he'll be too scared to fight." The evil Empress cackled with delight. "Oh, I love it." She clutched her wand and began to chant an evil spell. "Terror, terror, get in gear. Make Billy's fear sharp like a spear. Fill him with fright when a fish comes in sight." Lightning bolts burst from Rita's magic staff as it drew in waves of terror from around the world. The air crackled with electricity. Then the evil spirits whizzed down to earth and hit its target. Billy stopped in his tracks, so terrified he couldn't take another step. The fish! The fish!" he stammered. "I'm too afraid." "Billy, I need you!" Kimberly shouted, backing away from the Goo Fish. "I can't help it," he cried. "I want to." But Billy couldn't even move. "Fight your fears," Kimberly said. Again and again, Billy tried to help, but one look at the Goo Fish set his heart pounding in his chest. Back in the command center, Zordon monitored the action on Earth. "Try raising Zack, Trini, and Jason on the communicators, Alpha." But the teens didn't answer. They were still underwater. "Ay, ay, 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 ay," said Alpha. "This is getting serious." Meanwhile, on the beach, the Blue Ranger crouched into a ball as the Goo Fish closed in on Kimberly. The Pink Ranger bravely leaped at the monster. Blue goo shot out from its mouth onto her power boots and glued her to the ground. "Ugh! What is this?" Kimberly cried as the Pink Ranger struggled to escape her gooey prison. The monster whipped out a spear, a deadly spear with a razor-sharp point. The Goo Fish heffled the spear, laughing, and took aim. Chapter 5. At the other end of the beach, Zack, Jason, and Trini finally popped their heads out of the water. Sunlight sparkled on the waves as the three swam back to the shore. Seagulls flew lazily overhead. The friends kicked off their flippers and wetsuits and pulled on their t-shirt and shorts. Jason gave Zack a high five. "That was an awesome dive." "Totally amazing," Zack agreed. Trini smiled. "I can't believe how beautiful it is down there." "Beep, beep," the communicator sounded, shattering the calm. "What is it, Zordon?" Jason asked. Zordon's deep voice boomed. "Rita has created a new monster. It's called the Goo Fish, and it has Kimberly and Billy trapped at the other end of the beach. You must help them immediately." "We're on our way," said Jason. He turned to his friends. "Come on, guys. It's morphing time." They held up their power morphers. "Mastodon!" cried Zack, and morphed into the Black Ranger. "Saber-toothed tiger!" cried Trini, and morphed into the Yellow Ranger. "Tyrannosaurus!" cried Jason, and morphed into the Red Ranger. An instant later, the three Power Rangers teleported to Billy and Kimberly. "Hey, Tuna Breath!" shouted Zack to the Goo Fish. The scaly monster swerved its head around. When it saw three Power Rangers, it roared and stabbed its spear at them. The Rangers ducked. Then they leaped up and gave the monster three powerful punches. The evil fish hardly budged. Jason karate kicked the monster, but he slipped on its slimy skin and fell at its feet. Aiming straight for the Red Ranger, the Goo Fish raised its deadly spear. Zack dashed forward and swung his mighty arm, knocking the spear from the monster's grasp and breaking it in half. The Goo Fish grunted in anger. Then, surprisingly, it backed away. And with one last roar, the evil fish dived under the waves. Kimberly breathed a sigh of relief as her friends helped unstuck her from the glue. But where was Billy? A few feet away, The Blue Ranger rocked back and forth. His knees were up against his chest, his teeth chattering in fear. Gently, Kimberly helped him to his feet. Quickly, Kimberly told the others. We better get back to the command center. Something's really wrong with Billy. A split second later, the 5 teens stood before Zordon. We really had our hands full with the Goo Fish, Jason told Zordon. Man, said Zack, it didn't even feel our punches. Billy felt terrible. Now that he was far away from the fish, he wasn't so frightened anymore. But why hadn't he been able to fight? Why had he been so scared? It was all my fault, he said sadly. I didn't do a thing. Trini touched his arm. Don't blame yourself, Billy. Everyone's afraid of something. Is there anything we can do to help Billy? Kimberly asked Zordon. Jason stepped forward. We're really going to need him. Yeah, said Zack. That goo monster is one slippery fish. Everyone has to fight together. Zordon noticed. There is an explanation for Billy's behavior. Rita cast a spell, making Billy more fearful of fish than he has ever been before. Zordon paused for a moment, then continued. Billy, you have to face your fear of fish. You have had some bad experiences, but that doesn't mean that they will happen again. And if you stand up to your fear, you will overcome it. Rita's spell will be broken. Billy stepped forward. But Zordon, this monster is a fish. How can I face it? You must, Zordon replied. Behold the viewing globe. The Power Rangers turned to the globe. Everyone gasped as they watched Rita's monster spew poison up and down the ocean front. The poison covered the water, the sand, everything in sight. This monster is going to destroy humans and sea life, everything on Earth, if you don't stop it, said Zordon. Kimberly, Jason, Trini, and Zack all gathered around Billy. Trini said, Come on, Billy, I know you can do it. The others nodded in agreement. I'll try not to let you down, said Billy. Everybody cheered. Once again, it was morphing time. A crackling glow filled the command center, and the Power Rangers were gone. Chapter 6. In a flash, the Power Rangers appeared on the beach in front of the Goo Fish, just as the Putty Patrol landed on the shore once again. Can you face the fish, Billy? Asked Kimberly. The Blue Ranger squared his shoulders. I'm ready. Let's do it. He leaped in the air and slammed a fist into a putty. The other Power Rangers joined in, but Billy was a one-man fighting machine. He wanted to make up for being scared. Overwhelmed, the putties quickly vanished. More phenomenal! The Blue Ranger shouted. And then suddenly Billy froze. The Goo Fish was heading straight for him. Billy turned pale beneath his helmet. Oh no, he cried. I'm too afraid to move. Jason saw the danger. He had to do something, and fast. Jason raised his power sword high. I'll take on this shrimp face, he cried, leaping forward. He struck the monster, but the Goo Fish struck back harder, and Jason went flying. Trini and Zack exchanged worried looks. We need to fight as a team, Trini cried. They whipped out their power weapons and fired together at the monster, but the Goo Fish jumped back, and now a blue stream of goo sprayed from its mouth. Watch out! Kimberly yelled. But it was too late. The goo covered the Power Rangers' boots and stuck them to the ground. Wow, what is this stuff? Zack exclaimed, trying to lift his feet. It felt as if millions of pieces of bubblegum were glued to his boots. I don't know what it is, Trini said, but it's disgusting. Jason kept struggling. Then he called out to Billy, We're stuck! Give us a hand! I'll try, Jason, Billy said shakingly. He turned towards the Goo Fish and shrank back in fear. I can't go near it. Suddenly, Kimberly jumped out from behind a rock. I'll cut this fish down to size. She aimed her power bow at the monster. The arrow sliced through the air, a direct hit. Kimberly ran to Trini, Jason, and Zack. I'll get you out of this terrible muck. Kim, watch out! The Yellow Ranger shouted. The Goo Fish had recovered. Now it flung its starfish bombs. Sparks flew as 1, 2, 3 bombs stuck to Kimberly. The Pink Ranger fell to the ground, and the Goo Fish moved in. Kimberly! Cried Jason. We'll help you! But he couldn't help. Neither could Trini or Zack. The goo on their boots kept them locked into place. The Goo Fish hurled fish bomb after fish bomb, first at Kimberly, then at Jason, Trini, and Zack. The Power Rangers fell to the ground, weak from the blasts. Billy! Jason groaned. We need your help! Billy backed away, horrified. I can't! You can! Kimberly gasped as another bomb hit her. Billy knew that if he didn't act, his friends wouldn't make it. He forced himself to his feet, took a deep breath and thought, Zordon told me if I face my fear, I can break Rita's spell. Billy raised his head proudly. He could fight the monster. He would fight it. I will not let this fear take over, he shouted. The Blue Ranger is back. And with that, I'm going to leave it there. In the next video, we're going to be looking at Chapter 7. But if you like this sort of content and you want to hear and see more, hit that like button, hit subscribe, tell me if you remember this episode. And with that, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for listening. And yeah, subscribe, like, favorite, comment. And with that, and if I don't see you tomorrow, then I'll see you in a couple of days.
チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができます。